Hello, my name is Lorna. I am a tutor at Chrysalis and a psychotherapist. And today I'm going to take you through some of the aspects of Component 7, which is Counselling Practicum, and in particular, Module 11, the profession of counselling, employment sectors for counselling, and some reflections on placement work, professional development, and group dynamics. So let's start, first of all, with continuing professional development. So the practice of therapy does actually demand, especially from the professional registers, that we do continue the development of our skills, of our understandings, of our knowledge of theory. This can happen in lots of different ways, and you will, throughout your career, find lots of creative ways to ensure that you're keeping up with what you need to be doing for your professional development. Personal and professional development are linked and influence each other. So professional development is a requirement of your professional register. And all practitioners are expected to have and record a minimum amount of CPD, or continuing professional development, each year. Without CPT, we become stale in our approach. We must keep moving, we must keep learning, and in fact, one of the aspects of your supervision might be that your supervisor recommends to you certain CPD which would help you in the progression of your career at different points. CPD is specialist training. So new skills development, new approaches, reading good research, and it also provides you with opportunities for specialisms to begin to direct your practice to that which you are most interested in and perhaps most drawn towards. It also provides opportunities for networking and new contacts to be made. And CPD in particular recognises that counselling is a continually developing profession. So here is a typical statement from a code of ethics that you find within a professional register. So regarding CPD, all practitioners undertake to maintain or improve their level of skills and professional competence in an appropriate manner commensurate with their vocations. Maintain a varied continuing professional development programme completed to current society requirements for registrant members. Ensure that their CPD enhances their professional practice and improves the service provided to clients. It is important to keep up to date with new developments relevant to practice. Complete CPD in accordance with current society guidance per 12-month period, keeping theoretical and practical knowledge and skills up to date by learning more about their discipline and learning more about how to work as a professional practitioner, including any new legislative requirements. And to complete CPD in a range of activities. So this is an important thing to remember as well, that your CPD should be a variety. Okay, even if you are intending to specialise, you still need to be looking further afield, not just always taking a short course or reading books in one particular direction, but just keeping an awareness of what's generally happening within psychotherapy and counselling practice. So let's take a little look now about continuing professional development, or CPD. Personal and professional development are linked and influence each other. And professional development is a requirement of your professional register, and all registered therapists actually have to comply with professional development. All practitioners are expected to have and record a minimum amount of CPD each year. And without CPD, we become stale in our approach. We become out of touch. We must keep moving. We must keep learning. And most of us are very, very willing to do so. We are excited by our profession. We are excited by our topic. We are motivated by new ideas and developments and approaches. So CPD for most practitioners is an easy thing to comply with. The CPD can be specialist training, so skills development, or it can be good research, and it also provides many other different kinds of opportunities to start specialising in a particular area of interest, but also opportunities to network with other therapists and like-minded people, and to make new contacts as well. CPD recognises, importantly, that counselling is continually developing profession. So the requirement for CPD actually comes from your professional register. And when you are a member of a professional register, which all counsellors or psychotherapists should be, and to comply with that code of ethical practice, then you will be signing up that you will actually conduct an amount of CPD each year. So here we have a typical statement within the code of ethics from a professional register. And it says, regarding CPD, all practitioners undertake to maintain and improve their level of skills and professional competence in an appropriate manner commensurate with their vocations. Maintain a varied continuing professional development programme and complete to current society requirements for registrant members. Ensure that their CPD enhances their professional practice and improves the service provided to clients. It is important to keep up to date with new developments relevant to practice. Complete CPD in accordance with current society guidance per 12-month period, keeping theoretical and practical knowledge and skills up to date by learning more about their discipline and learning more about how to work as a professional practitioner, including any new legislative requirements. And complete CPD in a range of activities. And that's important as well, to actually remember that you're not just completing similar workshops or the same workshop each year, reading the same textbooks on the same topic. It's like you're looking here for a variety to expand your knowledge. And part of that is being flexible, isn't it? And to actually consider, well, here's an approach that I don't know anything about. I wonder what I will think of it. Let's try it. Okay, so let's think more about the profession of counselling. The profession of counselling, and here we are specifically looking at working within an agency. So for those of you who are on placement, then you will most likely be working within an agency. And agencies, as you may have discovered for yourself and through talking and discussing with your peers, agencies come in a huge variety of different organisational structures. So one of the things about seeking a placement is actually recognising that there is no consistency really with how placements are run or operate, or the purpose of which they were set up for, or how large or small they are. So here's some aspects of agencies. So the composition of agencies. So what comprises the agency, first of all? Well, what comprises the agency would be counsellors. If it is a counselling agency, then there will certainly be counsellors working there. There may also be supervisors who are supervising the counsellors and possibly the students on placement as well. There may also be managers, administrators, receptionists, fundraisers. Of course, there will be clients. And also, attached to the agency somehow will be funding organisations and professional bodies. So the agency may actually be linked to a professional counselling body and adhere to their code of ethics for the organisation and work within an organisational policy. And the agency may well have funding from different sources. That may be local authority, that may be other sources of funding. They may have grants, they may have bursaries and so on. And, they have to work with those organisations and provide what they can in terms of what the organisation is expecting. Structure of the agencies differ as well. have a think now, as we're talking through this, the agency that you are volunteering for, or the agency that you have applied to work for, what's the structure? What's the composition of your agency? What's the structure here? Do you actually understand the structure? So here's some examples here that an agency may have a hierarchical structure, so where there is authority held by a director or directors with clear lines of control, and this may be subgroups, there may be departments, it may be a national agency that has a head office, okay. Or it could, for example, be a collective. There could be an agreement between members who have formed the agency, agreement on policy and procedures through meetings and through discussions and so on. But actually, it is a collection of professionals who have formed together and actually created the agency. What's the culture of the agency? What's the culture of the agency where you work? What do I mean by culture? Well, I mean the feel of the agency. Does it feel that there is a very formal structure in place or quite informal? Does it feel warm? What's it like to be there? So culture of the agency can be expressed in many ways. How do people address each other? It's very formally or quite informally. How do people dress? What's the environment like? What's the use of touch, emotion, humour, for example? Does it feel very formal? Is it very relaxed? Does it feel warm? Or does it feel very structured? What's the beliefs? What's the purpose of the organisation? And finally, yes, what is the purpose? What's the beliefs that are underpinning the agency? Why was the agency set up? What does the agency hope to achieve or to change? What's the expectations from the agency? What's the expectations from therapy? What's the expectations of clients? What's the policies of the agency? So a lot of counselling agencies have actually grown up from grassroots, if you like. Certain people within communities or within certain towns have recognised needs of the people within that community, and recognised needs that have sometimes stayed within that community or sometimes spread further on a national basis. So organisations such as Cruise and such as Relate started in this grassroots way. A need within the community was identified, the type of support that people within the community could really, really benefit from. And then recognising in those two examples, which are now national organisations, that that need existed elsewhere. So has spread. Whereas, in other communities, there may be a need just within a specific community, a specific group of people who are living in a certain community may have a certain set of needs that can be met if somebody can set up that support and that help. So we can see then that this differs around the UK and differs according to needs, according to the purpose. And it's a good idea when you're actually thinking about working within agencies, and it may be that you are coming to the end of your time on placement, but you're also thinking about perhaps continuing with placements or continuing with some voluntary work, or perhaps moving to look at other agencies elsewhere and gaining more experience in a different area. But to consider these different factors of agencies. So yes, we can work within these agencies, but also where else can counsellors work? Where else do counsellors work? Well, counsellors, psychotherapists can work within statutory services, or within employment and education, or within different sectors. So statutory services, social services, healthcare, so within the NHS, IAPT, for example, improving access to psychological therapies, so working within statutory services. Employment and education, so the employment sector includes EAPs, so that's employment assistance providers, which are insurance schemes set up to ensure that employees of organisations, some large, some small, are able to get support if they need support in different areas. That may be medical support, that may be physical support in some way, so physiotherapy after an injury, for example, but also maybe psychological support. And many counsellors do actually work through employment agencies. So the education sector, okay, both children and adults. So education sector, so for example, agencies such as Place to Be do offer voluntary counselling to children within schools, right from early ages, right from primary school age. And then many counsellors work within colleges and universities, both with adults and with young people. And there are growing opportunities within this sector for counsellors and psychotherapists. Independent practice. Okay, independent practice is the private practice that many therapists do set up. And many therapists, look at a variety of ways of working. So many therapists work some of their time within statutory services, some of their time working for an EAP, and some of their time in independent practice where they will see clients privately. And then the third sector, or the voluntary sector, is the charity sector. So that's the type of placement agency that we've just been talking about. So we're turning now to just take a brief look at group dynamics. Now, in a previous module, you have looked at group dynamics, but we brought this in at this stage to actually think about reflecting on group dynamics for yourself. What is it that you can gain from the group? Now, if you are working on placement as a volunteer, or indeed working within an agency, then it's highly likely that you may also be having group supervision as part of that work. Group supervision is then involved in you working together as a group. Similarly, in your classroom, you are working together as a group. And you will know by now very well that a lot of your learning on this course has not simply come from the course notes or these lectures or the classes or the specific exercises that you have practiced in class, but it's actually come from being with your peers. It's been the sharing of experiences. It's been sharing of the group experience. And I'm just asking you now to just perhaps take some time to reflect on what happens in your group. What happens in your group supervision, if you have group supervision? What happens in your in groups where you support each other? So your learning groups. What happens in your classroom? What role do you take? What roles do you notice other people take? Because people tend to take different roles when working within groups or when being within groups. So there are people within groups who ask the questions, and people within the group who give information, people within the group who give summaries, people within the group who support others, people who are the humorous ones within the group, or the antagonistic ones within the group, or the group can be excluding of some people. Group dynamics is a complex thing, and actually we can learn an awful lot about ourselves by reflecting upon our own behaviour within the group. What do we feel enhanced by in the group? What do we feel challenged by in the group? Do we recognise whether we are the one that asks the questions? Or are we the one who is antagonistic? Or are we the one that is humorous? What roles do we play within the group. And so, on the other aspect of this slide here, let's look at some guidelines for group work so that you can maximise the benefits, the potential of the group within which you are working or groups that you will work with in the future. So, for example, really reflect on this and consider, well, can you take a role, for example, in creating trust within the group? Are you aware of how you are feeling within the group? Would you disclose those feelings within the group? If not, why not? What is it that you feel is a challenge there? How do you feel that will be received if you do disclose your feelings within the group? You take risks within the group to actually offer something that is a challenge, that is an observation, that's an observation of your own behaviour or your own feelings. Take risks, but also listen to others. Listen properly, listen carefully. Listen in the way that you have been practicing listening to your clients. Bridge distances. Can you recognise whether there are people in the group who you have had perhaps some conflict with, some challenge with, or perhaps somehow you've never got to know each other at all? Take a risk. Bridge the distance. Keep encouraging yourself to stay with your feelings. And if you can, confront when you feel that there is dishonesty within the group, where there is avoidance, where there is diversion, where people are not being truly honest with themselves, where they are diverting away from a particular feeling or a particular subject that you feel actually could really benefit the whole of the group and the person who is doing that avoiding. Call out. And avoid avoidance. If you feel that you as the group are avoiding a certain topic or subject, you've been given a subject matter to discuss, and you notice that actually you're not approaching this, you're not discussing this, then perhaps be the one who takes charge and says, stop, listen, what's happening here? Why are we avoiding actually talking about the subject? What's going on for us? In this way, we're using the group for personal growth and self-understanding because we are able to be with the feelings of, and to notice the interaction between ourselves and others, and to actually then bring that into the group. But self-disclosure requires participants to own and to disclose openly what is happening within us in the here and now. We own our feelings towards others in a non-blaming way. So some dynamics is happening within the group, and perhaps we disclose to the group, when you said that about the group, I felt quite anxious. We avoid storytelling, we avoid situations outside the group. We avoid talking about subjects that have got nothing to do with the group itself in the here and now. We stay present. We stay present with the group, and we bring in the same skills to the group that we have learned to use in our therapy sessions. We take a risk within the safety of the group to experiment with new ways of relating with ourselves, with our clients, and in everyday life. So, one of the ways that we can certainly use the strength of the group is in reflective practice. Reflective practice is a big part of professional development as well as personal development. Here is a process model that you have seen before. It's a reflective practice model. Reflective practice, as you remember, is a continuing process that happens in relation to your work with clients. It's often part of supervision sessions, and it's an aspect of this work that relates to your own feelings. And it's good to journal your reflective practice, to actually write about it, to think it through and to actually write it down and continue your journaling work throughout your professional practice. But if we look at this model that we know and that we've used and that is often used if, for example, we have experienced a critical incident within therapy, but also generally in supervision, let's look at point 2, feelings. What were you thinking or feeling? How much emphasis do you actually put on point 2 when reflecting on a critical incident? Because actually we have a tendency to defend our position rather than being honest with ourselves. Are we self-critical or are we self-supportive? So I'm just going to ask you at this moment to perhaps just pause the slide and then take a moment to actually consider this model. If you were using this model for a critical incident, and by that, as you know, I mean, well, something that you weren't expecting to happen, something that went a little awry, something that needs some reflection in order to learn from it so that it has less chance of occurring again in therapy with the client. So yes, and mainly you are talking this through or you're writing this down, a description of what happened, your feelings, your evaluation, what else could you have done, your analysis, what sense can be made of this situation, your conclusion, what was good or bad about the situation, your action, if it arose again, what would you do? But a lot of this feels sort of quite cold. It's a planning. It's an observation. It's objective. Apart from point 2, what was your part of this? What was your perceptions? What were your feelings? And how did what you were feeling or thinking make a difference to your evaluation, to your analysis, make a difference to actually what you did at the time? So take some time to consider that. And perhaps, if you wanted to perhaps go over some of the work that you've been doing over the past few weeks or months and use this reflective practice model, and in particular concentrate on that aspect of your own responses there. So reflecting on key principles of person-centered, as we know this is a key model for us. So we know these principles well now, but the important thing here, the reason that we're bringing this up at the moment, is yes, we know these key principles well, but do we actually relate them to ourselves? Humans are basically good and will strive towards goodness if given opportunity. Our subjective experience is all important, and the only meanings that are important are those we hold ourselves. We have the ability to self-heal, and we are capable of self-direction. So, do we apply these to ourselves? Are we kind to ourselves? Do we recognize our ability to self-heal? Are we taking responsibility for ourselves and our development? Again, take some time to reflect on this. Sometimes do we find that we give ourselves a hard time and actually we need to ask ourselves why, reminding ourselves that our subjective experience is all important. What we have lived through, what we are living now, how we have coped with that, the resources that we found within ourselves. Applying this model to ourselves. I'm going to finish this module today by reading this poem. Now this poem has actually, you can look this up online, and this has been attributed to various different people, which is interesting. But actually, one of the persons that it's been attributed to has made it clear that they would like to remain anonymous. So we're going to respect that and therefore say that this poem has been written by somebody who wishes to remain anonymous, but is very happy as well for this poem to be out there. And I think this poem is a very good indication of actually how it feels to be in a client's shoes, or in fact, perhaps how it feels to be in the shoes of anybody at the end of the day. And it really resonates with many people, especially when we consider those core skills that we have been developing and the purpose behind the development of those core skills. Listen. When I ask you to listen to me and you start giving me advice, you have not done what I asked. When I ask you to listen to me and you begin to tell me why I shouldn't feel that way, you are trampling on my feelings. When I ask you to listen to me and you feel you have to do something to solve my problems, you have failed me, strange as that may seem. Listen. All I ask is that you listen. Not talk, nor do, just hear me. And I can do for myself. I'm not helpless, maybe discouraged and faltering, but not helpless. When you do something for me that I can and need to do for myself, you contribute to my fear and weakness. But when you accept as a simple fact that I do feel what I feel, no matter how irrational, then I quit trying to convince you and can get about the business of understanding what's behind this irrational feeling. When that's clear, the answers are obvious and I don't need advice. Irrational feelings make sense when we understand what's behind them. Perhaps that's why prayer works sometimes for some people, because God is mute and doesn't give advice to try to fix things. He or she just listens and lets you work it out for yourself. So please listen and just hear me. And if you want to talk, wait a minute for your turn and I'll listen to you. Okay, thank you, and thank you for listening.